I don't know if many people would agree with that.
When those things happen to me, it's on. I know my rights.
You said you weren't going to get emotional. You said it. Hello, and welcome to the Critters and Cultures podcast, the podcast where we explore the fascinating intersection of animal welfare and cultural diversity. I'm your host and veterinarian, Dr. Azalia Boyd, ready to uncover how our cultural differences influence, enhance, and sometimes challenge the way we care for animals and relate to each other. Join us on this journey through global traditions, learning from diverse perspectives, and advocating for empathy and respect in all of our interactions. This episode is made possible thank you to Maddie's Funds, championing a more inclusive, innovative, and compassionate world for people and pets. So I will always say hashtag thanks to Maddie's. This episode is also brought to you by our community partner, the BIPOC and Animal Wellbeing Collective, a community of healing, support, and connection for Black, Indigenous, and other people of color in the animal well-being space. So thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Critters and Cultures. If something resonates with you during the podcast today, please feel free to send me a direct message, or you can reach out to our guest, or you can comment below. On this episode, I am so excited. I have the opportunity to introduce a guest who came to me at the very tail end of getting guest for this episode. It was just like he's heaven sent. Dr. Patrick Kalenzi. So Dr. Patrick Kalenzi is a veterinarian, public speaker, and author whose life journey spans from the hills of Uganda to building a thriving veterinary practice in the United States. Born to Tutsi refugee parents who fled Rwanda's 1958 genocide, Patrick grew up herding cattle and caring for dogs, experiences that planted seeds of a lifelong bond with animals. Dr. Kalenzi, thank you so much for joining us on the Critters and Cultures podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Okay, so I don't know if you've seen any episodes before, but typically what I do is I start with an icebreaker question. Okay,
Okay.
I know a little bit about you, but this icebreaker question is going to get the audience and the listeners to get to know you just a little bit more. And I did some research, so I do hope you're okay with this question. Are you ready?
I am ready. Let's go.
Okay, all right, here we go. Your grandfather
Yeah.
called you Rabba Gavo.
Nice way to pronounce it. That's very rare.
Okay,
Yeah.
he Rabba Gavo,
I'm
right?
impressed. Yeah.
Which means the audacious one.
Yes.
Before diving into your grandfather and the word, tell me what's the most audacious thing you've done that has nothing to do with veterinary medicine?
I ran after a moving train to hop on, so I would avoid paying the transportation ticket. So I could do potato trade and save money because I did not have money to pay for the ticket. Yeah, I let it run, and that's just one of them.
Oh my goodness. Okay,
Yeah.
that's one of many. I don't know how
Yes.
many of the stories of your audacious stories
Oh,
we'll be able to get into today.
there's a lot.
Tell us about the word since I brought it up. Tell us about the word Rabogabo.
So that it means in our Rwandese language, a man of men, a leader. So I think my grandfather just wanted me to just feel confident, have that big self-esteem. And in fact, I think he knew when you put the right words in someone's mind, they become that word. And he called me Rabagabo. First, it was because I'd survived polio, and I survived a coma and had come out of like a crippled stage. And before he knew, I was running around. So he said, "You are Rabagabo because you are resilient and you're gonna be a man of men." Meaning, I think he just wanted to take me to take care of his grandchildren and family. And since then, it stuck. So he called me Rabagabo, like a nickname.
Okay, okay. And this was a nickname that you lived with for years,
Yes, yes.
right? Do people still call you Rabagabo now? Or
Just
was
my
it just your grandfather?
Most of them are dead that knew that name. But my
Okay.
aunties that are still surviving, probably three or four of them, they just say it to mess with me because they know it was
Okay.
a childhood nickname and only grandpa used to use it. And he used to use it to just, annoy his wife because I used to just join him for breakfast when it was not planned. So if My grandmother made one cup of tea or coffee. I just show up, and then grandpa made sure that I had a cup of tea or something. So he'd be like,
Okay.
Rabbi Gabo, join me. And you could see my grandmother frowning, going like, this wasn't planned. What is he doing here?
Right. What
So
is he doing?
my aunties call me that just to kind of mess with me because they know no one
Okay.
else knows about it. Yeah.
I love that story. You said something right in the beginning. You said, I survived polio. Tell us about that.
So when I was 2 years old in a third world Ugandan, very poor, wretched of the earth family setup, we didn't have access to vaccines. But I think we may have, but my family, because of the feeling lower than an average citizen, because they were considered refugees, they didn't really know how to get the vaccines or even demand them. And some of these vaccines were actually free. So I didn't get vaccinated. At 2 years old, I got infected with polio, and my mom and dad didn't know. So finally, one hospital after another, one smart doctor in the local village said, "This guy has polio because my right side was completely paralyzed and I was getting muscle atrophy." So they took me to a major hospital. Well, a few weeks on life support because, polio, but the viewers don't know. It's a virus. While it cripples your muscles and bone density, it also affects your physiological functions, dehydration, circulation. So I was in a coma for a week or so. They put me on life support. So when the doctors contemplated turning it off because they said he has no chance, let's just get this life support prepared for the next kid who seems to have a chance. My mom said, no, you're not going to take that off because you have a problem with me. She's kind of scary. She's 90 pounds, but really scary.
Okay.
So she stopped the doctors. My father had given up. He said, they're right. Let's just take the kid. For him, it was more of an economical thing because the main hospital was far away from where we lived. We were in the country, and the hospital was in the city. He was thinking that if I die, which he was sure I was done, he wanted to take my body home in the taxis, communal taxis, because you could take a sick child and sit with him. But if I was dead, those communal taxis do not allow passengers are not going to sit with a family with a dead child. You would have to get a special car. So he was thinking, yeah, we can't afford this. So let's just take him while he has some life in it, and then let him just, nature. So mom said, no, we're not going to do that. So a few days later, I just popped up, and that was me. And then a couple of days more, they discharged me, and they took me to a local healer who knew how to fix, post polio and polio with herbs, which actually it worked. I wish I knew how to get a trademark for his herbs. I'll be a billionaire.
Yes.
So they took me and booked me there for my mom and I booked in that place for maybe a couple weeks, and I got out fine. I went home crippled, but within a few weeks and 2 months or so, I started crawling. Then a few years later, I started walking. So when my grandfather thought this kid doesn't doesn't stop, so the name Rabago came up.
Oh my goodness, that is incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that story. I didn't really set the stage for the audience and the viewers, but we are both veterinarians. You are
Yes,
a practicing veterinarian in the United States. You're in, where are you? You're in
Broomfield, Colorado.
Colorado,
Yeah, it's
right?
close. It's like about a few 20 minutes drive from the main city, Denver.
Okay. And no one, like, people probably don't know your story as much as they should. Like, how this child who was on life support that was supposed to be discarded
Hmm.
became a person who you are today, owning veterinary clinics, a
Hmm.
two-time TEDx speaker,
Yeah.
right? An author and all of these amazing things. And I'm just so incredibly impressed by your whole entire
Oh,
story. And so
thank you.
just yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. So you didn't always start here in the United States. You were
No.
in Uganda. What really drew me to your story
Yeah.
was the fact that your parents survived the Rwanda genocide, right?
Right.
And I watched the movie, and I think most people know the movie Hotel Rwanda,
Yes.
right? Where we
Yeah.
talk about the Tutsi tribes and
Hmm.
all of these things are a part of your story. Go deeper for us. Just give it, like, paint a picture of
Right.
how that affected your upbringing.
anyone has watched Hotel Rwanda, that was the filmed a more recent genocide in 1994. In fact, that was my father's generation that decided to go back to Rwanda. Let me give a good background. In 1958, the Tutsis, my tribe, were ruling over Hutus, which was the majority tribe. And Tutsis may have done things that usually chiefs and kings do to the masses that are not kind. But also, colonialists, especially Belgians and French, they came in and wanted to get ivory and minerals and stuff. And my tribe is stubborn. They didn't want to pay that or pay taxes. The colonial masters figured, let's get the masses majority to take over these minority Tutsis, us. So they funded them to get guns and ammunitions and support. And since Hutus were majority, they kicked my grandfather's generation out and many other people. But the way they were solving that problem is it wasn't a solution of just taking over power. The solution was to kill and wipe out the tribe of Tutsis to solve their problem. So many of my grandfather and his generation and my uncles and great grand uncles, they flee the country. So most of the Tutsis went to Uganda. Others went to neighboring countries like Tanzania and Congo. My father was born in the camp in Ugandan refugee camp. So then they got out of the camp and then they were supposed to be citizens of Uganda. I was born as a citizen, second generation Uganda, but there's a stigma. Most Rwandese, especially Tutsis, wherever we go, they don't want you to fit in. They always call you a refugee. They don't want you there. So in Uganda, while we were there, forget the fact that my father was born there, I was born in Uganda, we were not considered citizens. So every government in Uganda that changed, they always wanted us out. So at some point, most of my uncles and my dad's friends, my dad didn't go to a war. They wanted to go back to Rwanda and negotiated to go back to their country as Rwandese, right? Because their roots are there. The political regime there said, no, you're not coming back. Well, this group of people, Tutsis, had got education, financial ability, and a lot of military skills. And they had joined other countries' military regimes. So they were generals. So they said, all right, well, if you can't let us in, we're going to come by force. They fought and kicked out the regime that wasn't allowing them. But here's what happened. The Hutu regime that was there, that my side of the Tutsi tried to negotiate, but then it failed. And then my Tutsi tried to kick them out. Got them out. Before their government failed, the Hutus, the propaganda broke out and said, you should kill with machetes, guns, and wipe out all the Tutsis because they're going to help their relatives from other countries to come and take over the government. That's where 500,000 people were killed before the Tutsis came and actually took power and stopped the genocide. So that's how the whole connection from 1958, 1994 with the movie that was made, that's how it happened. Now, most of us are Rwandese, but we are Ugandans. I'm American. We don't need to go back. But we always need to know that we have our roots in Rwanda.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's incredibly important too. And there's so much that's coming up to me right now. It's like right now for most of us, we are looking at a genocide happening right
Yeah.
now,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so many of us, it's just easy for us to scroll past the headlines, right? And just say that they're just headlines or it's not our problem. What we're seeing in the world right now, right? There's so much of that actually happening
Yeah.
that they're echoes of your own story,
Yes.
right? And it does make me think like how we show up for people or how we fail to show up for people or for others that are going through what your people went through,
Yeah.
right? Also what I'm thinking is just, you being tagged as a refugee, like you just
Hmm.
said proudly that you're an American, right?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
what's going on in the country right now is I don't know if many people would agree with that,
I
right?
know.
How do you feel about that? Is any of this
Yeah.
affecting you?
For me, it's different. If I am an American and you tell me I'm not, I'll tell you to take a hike because it doesn't matter how I came here. Because if you are not Native American, you should shut up. Because the
This is
first
what the
people,
kids are doing right here.
yeah,
Clock it.
yeah,
T,
yeah,
yes.
the first people that came on the boat didn't probably not have a visa. There was some selection that happened, which is the same selection that happens. I don't believe in breaking the law to jump over a wall or to just run into the country. But for people who go through the line and they become citizens, they should never be judged by what they look like and be questioned about their immigration status. Because if you think about it, the first category of people and the second wave of people, whether they were from Europe, whether they were like somewhere in Italy or other countries, there was some paperwork they had to move here. So if anyone has a documentation that legally is allowed to come to the United States, you should not tell them they don't belong. Because you should tell your great parents they don't belong before you tell others they don't belong. For me,
Yeah.
I'm just so stubborn that when those things happen to me, it's on. I don't have
Yeah.
any. Yeah, I've been through so much that I don't care about small talk.
You were so stubborn and audacious. I will add that, throw that back in there,
Thank
right?
you. Yeah.
But honestly, the stigma that was put on you growing up as a refugee always will be seen as a refugee, even though that
Yes.
you were in Uganda.
Yeah.
Here in America, you're a black person, right?
Yes.
And I don't know your takes on this, so let's explore it just a little bit. And then we're
Yes.
going to tie
Yes.
this back to the animals, but I'm so
Yes.
incredibly embraced by your story. There is systemic racism here in this country. And I don't know if those two realities of being a refugee and classified and treated as a refugee and being a black person in America, whether those two realities ever intersected for you and how you navigate them. Like, does it matter that you're a black man in America? What is your take on that?
Oh, 100%. It matters that I'm a black man before anyone judges me as a vet, as an author, as a successful businessman. If I'm not dressed like this, the first thing that I'm judged for is a black man who's up to no good sometimes. Now, I'm not saying that's for everybody, but it's
Right.
just sometimes a subconscious thing that when people watch the news and they grow up in some neighborhoods, they can't help it but feel that way. Now, for me, I'm gonna say luckily, which sounds ridiculous, I have dealt
Yeah.
with tribalism. It's
Right.
worse than
Wow.
racism. Yeah. I've dealt with
Wow.
bullies who just belittled you and called you derogatory names because you are a Tutsi or Rwandese in Uganda. We got into scuffles and they were dangerous. So when I moved here, I've been through it. I'll give you a quick story and it's not in my book because I wanted my book to focus on the African Ugandan experience all the way until when I got on the plane. But there are things that maybe someday I'll write about. I was delivering newspapers my first couple months in Boulder County, which is Colorado. You know, when you deliver newspapers and it's hot in the summer, then I was like 27, so I took my shirt off. No one is seeing me. It's 3 o'clock and 3 in the morning. You get out of your car and you throw newspapers at the patio or you put them there and then you run back in the car because no one is out there. So someone called the cops and said, "Hey, there's a black man getting up and down the patio." And obviously they called the cops. So the cops came, 5 different cars with lights and guns out. So they stopped me and I look around. I did not think that was me because I thought, surely it can't be me because I'm delivering newspapers. I've been in this neighborhood. They should be looking for somebody behind, maybe some robbery or something. Well, it turned out it was me. So they, short story, they got me out, but they were yelling and had guns pointed at me. I said,
Wow.
"What's happening?" They said, "We got a report that there was some suspicious activity, like a robbery happening, and they think it's you." Then I said, "Well, obviously, you could see the car is full of newspapers. You could see I have my lights on because I'm looking for addresses. So, yeah, no, I didn't do that. I don't have a reason to steal." The only problem is they didn't believe me. They had me sit and wait for 45 minutes because they said the person who called them said there was another black person in the car. Forget the fact that the passenger seat and the back seats in my little old 25-year-old Toyota was full and no space. The other person would have had to sit on top of the car if they were there. I said, "Do you see that there's no spot for human being? Can you let me go? I need to finish the route because I gotta go my next day job, which starts at 8 at a pet store." Like, well, we gotta verify. So they looked around 45 minutes later on handcuffs, sitting on the concrete. They let me go. But then I kept thinking, had I been a white person, would they not believe me? I can understand if people call, that's their right, and they don't want to be. But then those things kind of happen. Every once in a while, I get pulled over. A lot of times, it's actually me. I'm speeding sometimes, which is a
Okay, so
good reason.
you,
Yes.
which is a good
But
reason to pull somebody over.
yes, I
Yeah.
take all the blame and I answer all the questions, but the question they ask and sniffing in the car and looking and asking me some questions
Yeah.
that are not really about the traffic. Sometimes saying, where you come from, what are you doing? Do you have this? Do you have this? It makes
Right.
me wonder, why can't you just tell me about the traffic offense? Let me go my way. I'll pay the ticket. So yeah, those things happen both from the refugee status in Uganda and then as a black man in the United States. But guess who doesn't cry about it? Me. I have built a
Mm,
system that unless if you kill me, which as we've seen in recent times, I have enough money to pay the lawyers. I know some
mm.
law. I'm not a lawyer, but I have lawyers. I know my rights, and I'm gonna wait and get in court and raise hell. A few times when they pull me over for silly reasons, I have gone to court and they have not sent their documents, and the judge looks at me like, "Why are you here?"
What
I'm
are you
like,
doing?
"I was here to see who had a complaint, and we were gonna talk about it." They usually dismiss me and go like, "No one said anything."
Well,
So
I
yeah,
will say this, you are fortunate, right? And I know that you're saying this from a place of having the experience and a place of humility that you have the ability to be able to pay the lawyers, pay, right?
yeah,
Like you're in a profession that allows you to be able to do that, but then so many others don't, right?
they
So this
don't
is what
know.
we're talking about,
Yep, yep,
police brutality, systemic racism, and these structures that unlike many people in this country that you and I and others have been able to obtain,
absolutely.
So, and it's interesting because people don't understand that there's tribalism, and we won't dive into that, but it
Yeah,
does go to show how much tough skin you actually have from being able to see what you just called the worst thing could be death. Other than
yeah,
that, you're going to keep
yeah.
trucking, you're going to keep blowing through, keep pushing through. But I also heard you say that you went from newspapers to the pet store. Newspapers to the pet store. I got to get into the pet store. I got to get into maybe not the pet store, but how you got to be a veterinarian
Yeah,
from all of the things. This episode of Critters and Cultures is brought to you by Maddie's Fund, a family foundation that believes in a world where every pet has a loving home and every family has the support they need to stay together. Inspired by a beloved miniature schnauzer named Maddie, the fund is transforming animal welfare through innovation, education, and equity. Whether it's funding groundbreaking foster programs, supporting community collaboration grants, or offering free online learning for animal care professionals, Maddie's Fund is investing in the people and the ideas that move us forward. They also believe that inclusion matters because real change happens when we uplift every voice in this work. Learn more, get involved, or start learning today at maddiesfund.org. Hashtag thanks to Maddie's. You can find that in the show notes. And our community partner, the BIPOC and Animal Wellbeing Collective, is a community of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color connected through the care, work, and advocacy in the animal well-being space. The collective creates opportunities for healing, support, and connection through weekly support calls, which I have been on so many of those weekly support calls, collaborative small groups, and a private messaging space where members can connect, share resources, and support each other in real time. To learn more about joining the community, offering support, or finding support yourself, visit bipoccollective.com, and that will also be in the show notes. So tell me about your formative years around animals. Like most people have these stories where they're growing up and their parents are vets and they've been in the vet hospital. It didn't start that way for you.
no, not at all. No.
Where did your connection with animals even start? Your earliest memories.
Naturally, how some families are fishermen, other families are craftsmen. We are cattle keepers and herdsmen. So basically, either you have cows and your lifestyle is to herd cows and sell them for milk or beef. My grandfather worked for people who had cows. So did my father because we had the skills. So people hired them to take care of their cows. Rich people that had farms. My grandfather never went to school. My father never went to school. My mother never went to school. So there was nothing like veterinary medicine or science or biology. No, just cattle.
Cattle.
So cattle, that's it. And
Wait,
then
I have to ask, what are the skills? What are the skills that you're referring to?
I can not anymore because now I've become a little soft.
You're a
I
little
was
bougie,
yes, I am.
a little
I
small
could
animal bougie
with the tie. This stuff
with
doesn't
the
work.
tie. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But when I was 14, I could harbor a crazy wild heifer who we have to milk, and they don't want us to milk them by force, because those cows are not like the Frisian cow that's sitting in a paddock and they have a paddock on. So it's like taming a wild horse in the US. I knew how to harbor those. I knew how to milk. I knew how to get them used to accept that we are going to milk. Then I knew how to train them that this is the time for milking, and then you have to let your calves milk a little bit, and then we have to move them, and then where to find water and how to feed them, because remember, we don't have hay or prepared cow feed. We were nomads, where you start in the morning and walk where the pasture is going to be or where the water is going to be. Sometimes that's a whole day.
Mm.
So one of the skills, don't be hungry, because you ain't gonna get food in the
Oh
wilderness.
my gosh,
So
right.
those are the skills people who had cows knew to hire our type of tribe to help them with their cattle.
I love that. And I don't know, you have to have some level of communication. Like whenever I deal with horses, and I don't deal with them very often because I don't know them very well, but you have to have the ability to
Yeah,
communicate with
yeah,
this
yeah,
huge animal for your own safety, right?
yes,
One of the things that you mentioned to me that I thought was so incredibly special was a proverb that kind of tied in how the animals and the relationship with the people of Uganda can
right,
work. Can you share
yes.
that?
Yeah, so while I emphasize cattle, remember, whether it's Europe or Africa, whenever people have cows, they usually have a dog. So we had cattle for milk and beef, but we always had dogs because dogs kind of help you hard or stay with you. One of the saying was that if you beat a man's bull or dog, you are looking for trouble with that man. It's a proverb in Rwandese language that if you beat a man's bull, because remember, the bull is like the big calf that breeds all the females, so they usually have one. So that's such a privileged cow for that man or the dog. So if you hurt it, you are looking for trouble with him. It's a proverb. That shows you the connection. So you don't mess with around this man's cow or or
Or their
or,
dog.
or their dog. Yeah.
Oh, that's so incredibly special. A lot of people are like, oh, other countries don't love their dogs or don't value their dogs as much, right? But that is a saying that you heard growing up.
Yes. But also, Dr. Boyd, here's the other thing. My mother loved me just like an American loves their own son, but I still got polio. And sometimes I didn't have food, not because she didn't love me. It's also the
Mm,
same thing that these people love their dogs, they just don't have the resources. They don't
mm,
have the ability that our own dogs in our home has. Our dogs have beds. They have we put them in a kennel that's like a hotel. Our dogs didn't even come in the house because if the house is only about 600 square feet with six, seven, 10 children, there's no space for a dog. So
right.
I didn't get polio because my parents didn't love me. Our dogs in Africa or poor black families don't have all the things they need, not because they don't love them. It's just the resources.
100%. And
Yeah.
thank you for tying that together. You have lived through a lot. And I want to ask another side question, but I want to go back to your relationship with dogs.
Yes.
Was being a veterinarian something that you always wanted to do then? From when you were little? I know you didn't see it in the household.
No.
How did that change for you? When did that happen?
No, I didn't think about being a vet. I didn't know what a vet meant because a lot of times when I was young, my grandfather treated our own animals, but every once in a while there would be a vet who came home and did vaccines or treated some animals. But the reason I became a vet was very easy. You'll be surprised. In high school, I didn't enjoy it, but I did better in biology and chemistry.
Okay.
In Uganda, whatever you do best, that's what you do at the university or your career. So because I did better in that, I was talking to my grandfather, going like, well, if I get the government scholarship, because we couldn't afford the university if I didn't get a scholarship, I said, well, I'm going to try and do something in science. So he said, what would that be? Then I said, science subjects could get you to be an engineer, could get you to be a doctor, could get you to be a biologist or anything. And he said, well, is there something that works with animals? Because that's our life. And then I said, yeah, it's called veterinary medicine. He's like, that's it. Just can you do that? I'm like, signed. Literally,
Sons.
that's
That's
what
it.
happened. That's it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's incredible. And I'm sure, how long have you been practicing now?
27 years.
Oh my goodness. All right. I'm right behind you. I'm right behind you there on the 27 years.
Yeah.
And you are a practice owner, right?
I
Do you,
own a veterinary hospital and I own a grooming shop. We just closed one that because of recent scarcity in veterinary doctors, but we had two. I had two, but this we bought a bank building and we expanded. It has 9 exam rooms. We have a lot of support and we're busy. So yeah, I own the veterinary hospital and a grooming shop.
oh my goodness, that is success from
And the
Uganda to cattle to grooming and vet med. When you think about everything that you've lived through, what are you most proud of?
um,
Lots of things for you to be proud of. You said you weren't going to get emotional. You
no,
said
no,
it.
I'm not going to. But the my brothers and sisters and nieces that have graduated from college, that's the biggest achievement. And I'm doing well. I have some money. I own this building. It's in Broomfield. It's multi-million dollar building. I don't count that as the achievement. It's the human lives.
Hmm. I'm going to dig a little bit there. Okay, what does that mean? Did you take them through school or is
Yeah.
it them looking up to you as a role model?
Yeah, both. So when you are in the university, maybe I don't know about America, they give you some money for a project, right? So I used to do that project, but where I needed to pay transport to go do that project, I would walk there and then save money and buy my sisters and brothers food. But then I would also pay for my siblings' school fees, the ones that were little, because I'm third in the family. So after me, the first two were out of school, the second two were out of school, but the generation after that, my mom popped a bunch of kids.
I
We were
see.
we were 11, so I was able to catch up when I could pay with the six. But keep in mind that my sisters and other ones that had dropped out of school, well, they also now had children. So at some point, so I was paying for their school fees. And then when I got my first job in Uganda, we were sharing the little proceeds because really the job in Uganda wasn't paying well. So I was paying for their rent and school fees, and I would find a way to make it work. In fact, that was a motivation for me to move from Uganda to the United States. I thought this is not going to work because before you know, we won't have anything. And we didn't have a place to be too. I was in the city renting a small little single bedroom, and my siblings and nieces and nephews were in another town. My mom, she didn't have a home, so almost homeless. So I figured this is not gonna work. So a few years, couple years in Uganda, working as whenever there was a small case, and it wasn't working. So I thought, you know what? I have to do something. So I thought I'm gonna get a license. I'm sorry, a visa to go to another country. I wasn't even thinking about doing veterinary medicine. I just want to get a pay from whatever job to support my family. So I thought, okay, if I'm gonna struggle for a visa in my life, I always start with the most hardest thing that I could do. And then if it doesn't work, I go down a little bit. So I started with the United States. It's because the hardest to get a visa. Well, somehow God listened and I got a visa. I moved here. Then I was doing newspaper delivery. I was working
Right.
at a pet store and an emergency hospital, vet hospital, as an assistant, not a technician, not a doctor, but as an assistant. I got paid more than I was paid in Uganda as a vet. So then I was helping my family
Wow.
better. And really, my celebration, my success has been in the family that have come up and they're independent, employed, successful in their way. And the other part is what you mentioned. I didn't have a role model growing up. I was the first to go to university. I was the first to break some courses and stuff. Now they have a role model. My nieces are so proud of me. they they brag so much about me. It's almost obnoxious.
Right, right.
Yeah,
My Uncle Pat.
yeah,
Do
yeah.
any of them want to be vet? Do you
They
have
want
any
to.
vets coming up behind you?
Unfortunately, no. They just want to be authors now.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
let's get into that because you've written a book.
Yes.
I haven't had a chance to read it, but it's definitely something that is on my list. What compels you to keep telling your story?
Grandfather's legacy. So,
Okay.
as a person, refugee, third world, wretched, poor guy, he had this great wisdom that I got lucky to get some of it through my curiosity and asking questions and spending time with him. That I feel like if he had a big microphone, if he had a platform, the world will be a better place because of him. So my job is to make sure the world knows about Grandpa, Baba. That's when you read the book, that's Baba. I'm gonna make sure as many people know about him as possible. That's my job. That's my legacy. I want him to be recognized and be honored. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. I
Of course.
know that there's so many more details we could have gotten into. I
Yeah.
know that this
Yeah.
really should be a part one, part two. But I'm hopeful that the listeners, the viewers, were able to feel your story, also able to take some strength. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes we have to
Yeah.
rely on each other's story to find that inner strength for us to keep pushing and keep going in whatever it is that we're going through in our lives. So I appreciate you sharing that with us today. I know some
Thank you.
parts of that was not easy. Before we close, I asked each guest to leave a piece of cultural relevance, something meaningful from your life, identity, or heritage that someone out there might carry with them. It could be a tradition, it could be the proverb we already talked about, a memory, a favorite dish, or a value that grounds you. What is something that you would like to offer as a cultural gift to our listeners and to whoever comes next on this journey?
The common theme that I usually have, and when I get stuck in life, I have to remind myself of this proverb. It says, I'm going to say it in Rwandese because some Rwandese will watch this. It says, Iyakaremye niyo ikamena. Translated, whoever created it, him or her, only he can break it. No one can break me if you didn't create me. No one can break you if they didn't create you. So when you think it that way, I'm not saying be careless with your life. Nothing can break any one of us. Mhm.
Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing that in your
Of course.
native language too. I appreciate that.
Of course.
We're going to have to run that back. I'm going to have to try to see if I can. I got Rabagabo, but I don't know
Yeah.
if I can do much else, right?
You get it.
Okay, thank you so much, Patrick Kalenzi. Thank you so much. And thank you to the audience and the viewers. Thank you for joining us on Critters and Cultures, where we explore the deep connections between humans, animals, and the world around us. Remember, every person has a story, every creature has a story, and every culture has its wisdom. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep discovering the wonders of our shared world. Thank you.